Hi guys, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to cover Unit 4, Adjectives. I am going to give you a summary of this whole unit. So you will be taking notes during this class discussion. So I need for you to have either your notebook or loosely paper and a pencil or pen for you to take notes because as I said before, you will be taking lots of notes. Okay, let's get going. Okay, so these are the main points that I'm going to cover today. Number one, we are going to cover and discuss what is an adjective. We are going to talk about articles and demonstratives. We are also going to be comparing with adjectives. We are going to be covering the comparative and the superlative forms, and we are going to be comparing with more and most. Okay, so adjective. What is an adjective? An adjective describes or modifies a noun or pronoun. One adjective can change the meaning of a whole sentence. So because adjectives gives us descriptions, they make sentences a lot more fun and a lot more interesting to read. Also, you can use more than one adjective to describe a noun. Sometimes adjectives come before the noun that they describe, and other times they follow the noun that they describe. Let's look at this example. 3 hungry and tired campers stumbled home. We are describing the camper. We are saying that the campers are tired, hungry, and that there are 3 of them. So if you notice, the adjectives in this sentence come before the noun that they describe. As I said before, there are other times where the adjective follows the noun that they describe. Example, children, cheerful and noisy, called to us. Cheerful, noisy are words that are describing the children, okay? And notice that they follow, that they are after the noun that they describe. You know that a predicate adjective follows a linking verb. We already covered this lesson. A predicate adjective, as you already know, describes the subject of a sentence. Example, Nina felt sleepy. How did Nina feel? She felt sleepy. Sleepy is the adjective in this sentence. In this case, it's a predicate adjective because it's describing the subject of the sentence. The next example, I was anxious to get home. Again, we identify was as a linking verb because anxious is describing the subject, which is I in this subject. Now, this is a lesson that we already covered, so this should not be difficult for you to identify, okay? And again, in these examples, the adjective follows, right, the linking verb, okay? So it's after. An adjective may be more than one word. When such an adjective comes before a noun, it is usually hyphenated, okay? For example, and hyphenated just means that you're going to use a hyphen. I'm going to show you in a minute. I get paid weekly at my part-time job. This here, part-time, is an adjective with more than one word. And because it comes before the noun that it's describing, we use a hyphen. Here's a hyphen, that little line in between. Next example, we bought 3-sided tents. Again, we're describing the tents. We're saying that they're 3-sided. So we hyphenated the word 3-sided in the adjective. There are many categories for adjectives, and I'm going to name most of them here in this presentation. This is where you want to be ready to take notes. I would label this as categories or adjective categories or categories of adjectives, and I would copy these down. So the first category is where we describe quantity, and it answers to the question, how many? For example, 2, 5, 35, and these numbers are giving us exact numbers. But There are also other words such as many, few, first, last, some, all, and none that can also answer to how many. They also describe quantity. They're not giving you a specific amount, but they're nonetheless still describing quantity. Okay? The second category describes quality, and this answers to what kind. We have examples such as hot, cold, beautiful, ugly, easy, difficult, sweet, sour, angry, calm. And these qualities can also be considered opinions, right? For example, I could say, I grew a beautiful plant. Beautiful is describing the plant. That can be my opinion. I think it's beautiful, but someone may think that it's an ugly flower. So they can also say, she grew an ugly flower. It's still describing the flower. Okay? It's all about perceptions. For example, when you take a test and I ask, how was the test? You can say, it was a difficult test. It might have been difficult for you, but someone else could come along and they could say, oh, teacher, that was an easy test. Okay? So when we're using words that are answering to what kind of test? Difficult, easy, what kind of flower? A beautiful flower, right? These are all words that are describing quality. Let's go to the next category. And here in this category, I am going to give you more details on it later on in the presentation, but I just want to give you a brief introduction of the topic. The third category describes which. Examples, those and these, which are plural when you're using it for plural nouns. Those books, these books. Also that and this, and we use it for singular nouns. That book on the table, this book on the table. Okay, and it answers to which one. Which book? That book. Which books? Those books. And again, I am going to give you a bit more detail on this specific category because they have a special name for them, okay? Our next category describes the size. Example, short, long, large, small, thin, thick, 2 feet long, 2 inches long. These are measurements. It answers to the question, what size? And these are all words that are describing size. And a word that describes or modifies, yep, that's an adjective. Okay. Another category describes age. What age? Young, old, a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 70-year-old, a baby girl, a baby boy, right? These are words that are describing what age the girl is, pretty much, without giving you a specific age. A teenage girl gives you pretty much description of the type of girl, the age of the girl that we're talking about. Antique, modern, okay? So these are all words that describe age. Another category, and pretty well known for you guys, it's easy because you learned this, the shapes when you were in preschool. So words that describe a shape or answer to what shape or form are also adjectives. Examples, fat, slim, round, square, circular, crooked, straight, uneven, flat. These words all answer to the question, what shape or form? And these are all words that describe a shape. Our next category, and this is a pretty simple one for you guys, describes color. Okay, what color? What color is that? It's a purple. It's light green. It's yellowish. When you don't know if it's between colors, you can just add ish to it and it gives it a pretty close idea of what color you're trying to get to. Also, you can use color families such as neon green or pastel green, right? These are all words that describe a color. Great. But don't overdo it because it's an easy one, okay? Not everybody needs to know the colors of all the things that you will be describing. Another category, which we'll also cover later on in the discussion, and I'll give you more details on it, will be describing the origin. Example, American, Puerto Rican, Hawaiian. What origin? Where is it from? Okay, we could say the American flag. The flag of the United States is the American flag. Now, notice that all of these words are capitalized because these are proper adjectives. And I'll discuss that later on, okay? Another category would be to describe the material. And when we're talking about the material, what material is it made of? Is it cotton? Is it leather? Is it glass? Is it steel? Is it wooden? Is it plastic? Right? And I'm pretty sure that you can think of different things that are made out of these materials. So this is another category. Another category that I wanted to add here was the be specific, and also we can ask what kind. Examples, we have the kitchen table, we have a sports car, a Christmas card, a tennis ball, a football coach. And if you look at some of these words, for example, kitchen and sports, Christmas, most of them, right? All of them, they're nouns as well. But in this particular phrase, they're being used as adjectives because they're describing, you're being specific. I'm not talking about any table, I'm speaking about the kitchen table, okay? I'm not talking about a birthday card, I'm speaking about a Christmas card. So you see how they're being specific? What kind of card? A Christmas card. What kind of table? A kitchen table. What kind of coach? He's a football coach. Ah, okay. So you're being specific about these words that you're giving to describe nouns. Okay. So let's look at these two sentences, and I want you to pause it and I want you to write it in your paper because we're going to do a little exercise afterwards. What do you notice? Mom bought a wooden new kitchen beautiful table. What? He drove a sports fast Italian yellow car. Something doesn't sound right, right? Okay. That's because there is a specific order of adjectives. And I want you to write this down. So pause the presentation and write these down and have them with you handy so that when you're writing, whether it's for social studies or reading class or science class, you can really practice using the adjectives because as we said before, adjectives make sentences very interesting and very detailed. So first we have the quantity, the quality, the size, the age, the shape, the color, the origin, the material, and any specifics. And that's the exact order that I presented it to you. So if you need examples, you can go back to the slides and write some of them down, okay? Now, remember those sentences that I told you to write? Remember those? Okay, let's see how it changed. Now it says, Mom bought a beautiful new wooden kitchen table. Now it makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Okay, let's see. We first added beautiful, and then new, and then material, right? This is a bit out of, let me fix this in just a minute. Quality would go under, here we go. I apologize for this. It happens. This is a live class, sort of pre-recorded. Yep. So we're doing good, no problem. Let's continue. Okay, so now beautiful is the quality, the age, we're following the order, the material, and then specific. We don't need to have all of them, right? But then you look at the list, and if you have quality, then quality would go first. And then you have age, right? Okay, so just follow that order. Let's look at the second sentence. He drove a fast yellow Italian sports car. Now it does make a lot more sense. So we have the quality, fast, the color, yellow, Italian is the origin, where the car is from, and the specific, it's a sports car, okay? It's not an antique car, it's not anything but a sports car. And I know that the words are a bit below, way more than I wanted, but you guys understand the concept. Awesome. Okay. So let's work with some examples. And let's see. And here we are, again, we are working with, what are we working with here? Yes, if you notice, is, am, were, are. These are all being verbs. So we're going to practice a little bit with what? These are all linking verbs. Yes, we were talking about proper adjectives. So we've identified the linking verbs in the sentence. And let's look at the first example. The project is ready. We identify the subject and which word, right, describes it. We're finding the adjective and the word that it describes. So for number one, ready describes project, which is the subject. Okay, let's go to the next one. I am excited. What is the adjective and what word does it describe? Yes, if you said excited and I, yes, because it's describing the subject. In this sentence, it's I. The pie is homemade. Find the adjective. Can you see it? Awesome. Homemade is describing pie. That arrow should actually be pointing a bit more to the left so you guys understand the concept. Number two, it is moist. We identify the adjective. What word is describing? Moist. And it is describing it, which is the subject. Again, this arrow should be pointing more to the left than to, let me go fix that because you know me. I can't leave it like that because it's going to drive me crazy. So let me just move them. And now you guys are just looking at my secret for this. Okay. So let's go to number three. The apples were fresh. We identified fresh as the adjective and it's talking about how the apples were. The apples were fresh. So this is the predicate adjective. Remember that example, that exercise that we worked with? Number four, they're juicy. Juicy is describing the subject, they. Pretty awesome. All right. So now let's talk about articles and demonstratives, okay? And when we talk about the articles, we're talking about a and the. And when we're talking about demonstratives, we're talking about this, that. And if you have your book, I'm just covering some of the units from the book. So if you hear me flipping pages, it's because it's part of the unit discussion, okay? So remember this, that, these, and those, right? That they answer to which ones. Okay, so they're called demonstrative. Okay, demonstrative adjectives, and they're part of the adjectives family, and so are the articles. So when do we use a? When do we use in, the, this, that, these, and those? Let's discuss that. And this would be a good time for you to have your pencils ready so that you can take some notes. Okay, so articles a and the. Let's start with those. And notice how it says singular nouns. So we use a and the for singular nouns, but be careful now. We use a if the next word begins with a consonant sound. Notice that I'm not saying a consonant letter. I'm saying a consonant sound. So the word that follows needs to make that consonant sound. Example, we have a country, a helicopter, a knee. See, these are all words that not only do they begin with a consonant letter, but they also make the sound of a consonant letter, okay? So that's when we use a. When do we use n? Well, it says here if the next word begins with a vowel sound. Again, emphasis on vowel sound. So, an elephant, elephant, and ankle. Notice how they do begin with a vowel, but they also have that vowel sound. Now let's look at the last example, an hour. What do you notice? Yes, H is a consonant, but when you say hour, in this case, right, it's not making the H sound, it's making a vowel sound. In this word, in hour, the H is silent, right? Usually the H sound would sound like hotel. It has a ho, ho sound. But in the word hour, it has a vowel sound, okay? So if the word that follows has a vowel sound, we use an elephant, an ankle, an hour, an octopus, okay? Awesome. An eagle. Most of them will begin with a vowel letter, but you have to be careful that it also has that vowel sound. Okay, for the, if the noun names a specific person, place, or thing, the yard, the dog. See, we're naming specific things. Let's say, for example, that you misplaced your jacket and you want to go to the yard to look for it. You're not saying just any yard. You're saying the yard in the school, for example, the backyard. So we know that you're naming a specific yard. Okay? Are you guys with me? Okay. So you can pause it, copy this down, and then hit play when you're ready to continue. Okay, so the articles, we're going to continue with articles, and in this case, we're going to focus on the as well, because the has dual purpose. It has two purposes. Not only does it work with singular nouns to name specifics, but also it also works with plural nouns. So we use the when you, for example, the noun, the word that follows is a plural noun, such as the flowers, the elephant, the toys, the teachers, the students, the desk, the fan. Okay, so we can use the with singular nouns when we want to name a specific. Would you bring me the pen that's on the desk? I'm naming a specific. I want you to get me a specific pen, right? But it's also used with plural nouns, such as the examples shown on the slide. Okay, so an article can come before a noun or before another adjective. So let's look at the first example. The ball hit an old shed. Now notice that we use the article the for the ball. We're naming a specific ball one, the one that hit an old shed. Here, N comes before the adjective old. We're describing shed, right? The shed is old. We're talking about the ball that hit an old shed. And here, a window was broken. Here, the article comes before the noun. Okay? In this case, the article comes before an adjective. In the ball, the the article comes before the noun. Okay? A girl told the owner that she was sorry. A girl, the article comes before the noun. The owner, the article comes before the noun. So we only pretty much have one example where the article comes before the adjective, but you need to know that this can happen, okay? Okay, good. If you need to copy this down, just pause it and then continue. Let's talk about demonstrative adjectives. So, and I want you to look at this table and notice how I wrote up here nearby, because these are the adjectives that we use for things or people or places that are nearby. And these demonstrative adjectives, are the ones that are farther away. So also notice that on the left, I wrote singular because this and that you use with singular nouns. And these and those, see how even the sound, the pronunciation sounds different. You use with plural nouns. So you'd say, this book, the one that I'm holding in my hand, it's nearby me. That book, not only am I talking about just one book, singular, but I'm also saying that it's farther away. That book in the corner, I'm saying that the book is a bit farther away from where I am. And you could say these Listen to the pronunciation. This, these. Okay, when you say these, you're talking about a plural. So you say these books. These books that I have here are so heavy. Or you can say those books over there are super fun. So again, we're referring to nearby and further away. So you should copy this down because you need to know the difference, not only when you use it with singular and plural nouns, but also when you're talking about things that are nearby or things that are farther away. Okay, so let's do a bit of practice. What do you notice? I want you to pause the video for a second. I want you to read the sentences carefully and copy any mistakes. So just think of the mistakes that are being made in these sentences, if there are any. Okay, you're going to tell me in a minute. So pause the video, go over the sentences, and then hit play when you're ready. Awesome. Okay, so now that you've read all the sentences, let's see if what you found is actually correct. You ready? Okay. Dad cracked an egg. Let's see. If you notice that the article A was in this sentence, and also that the word that follows starts with a vowel sound, then you are on the right track because egg is a vowel with a vowel sound, okay? Which means that article A should not have been used for this sentence. We should have used and. Dad cracked an egg. Good. Let's go to the next sentence. I brought a magazine to read, and you identified the article N. I hit that before I intended to, but you already did the exercise, so you already know this. Awesome. You look at the word that follows, and the word that follows is magazine. And magazine starts with and M sound, which is a consonant sound. So I brought and magazine, it's incorrect. We would have to cross out because we know that that's the consonant sound. So we cross out and we know that we need to use the article A. I bought a magazine to read. Perfect. Let's go to the third example. Noah ate an apple for snack. Did you find any mistakes? We first identified A, an apple. We identified the article N. Is there a mistake in this sentence? No, there isn't. Great job. No mistakes. Let's look at the fourth one. Luna wants a bike. What did you identify first? Okay, the B in bike. It's a consonant sound. And then you look at the article that they used. Luna wants a bike. This is actually correct. Great job. There were no mistakes in that sentence. Okay. So let's go over making comparisons. And we are comparing with adjectives, right? We can say that this flower is prettier than that other flower. We can say that this student is taller than this other student. And we can say that this student is the tallest of all. So when do we do this type of comparisons? That's what we're getting ready to learn. So when we're talking about making comparisons with adjectives, we're talking about the comparative form and the superlative form. Okay, look at the chart here. Comparative is going to have the ending ER, and superlative is going to have the EST at the end. So when do we use the comparative and when do we use the superlative form? That's the big question. So I am going to tell you, and if you want to copy this down, I recommend that you do. That would be very smart of you. Awesome. So we use the comparative form to compare two nouns. So when you're comparing two people, two places, two things, you need the comparative form, okay? Also, you will be using then. In the sentences where the comparative form is needed, you're going to see that the word then is going to be your keyword to easily identify that the comparative form is needed. Let's work on an example. Let's use the adjective big. A horse is bigger than a dog. Notice the word than, okay? And notice that ER was added to the word big, to the adjective big. Here we go. We also did something else, and there are rules that we have to follow for this. Don't worry, these rules will be very, very similar to the rules that you learned for verbs to form the past with verbs, okay? So then we have the superlative. When do we use the superlative form? Well, we use it to compare three or more nouns. Also, you're going to see the word the before it, okay? And that's your keyword. That's going to help you to identify the superlative form. Also, this is used when something is the most of all. You're going to find keywords in the sentences such as all, out of four, when you get specific numbers, right? And they name more than two, then you definitely know that you need the superlative form. Example, the blue whale is the biggest of all because out of all the animals, the biggest, or the ones that we're working with, the blue whale is the biggest of all. Okay? Good. And again, I circled the keyword for the superlative, which is the. That's going to help you to identify it, and it's going to make it so easy for you guys. Here are some examples of adjectives in their comparative and superlative forms. We have old, older, oldest, wide, wider, widest, thin, thinner, thinnest, tiny, tinier, tiniest, few, fewer, fewest, okay? So you're going to notice a few things. You're going to notice that to some of these, you are just going to add ER and EST to form the comparative and the superlative. Also, you're going to notice words such as thin, where we double the consonant and then we add ER or EST, right? Depending on the form that you need. Also, words such as tiny, where you change the Y to I and add ER for the comparative and EST for the superlative. So there are rules that you need to follow to form the comparative and superlative forms. But as I said before, these rules are going to sound very similar to previous rules that you've learned. So don't stress. Okay, and then I gave you some additional examples that you can read it and you can pause the video and copy these down because they're going to help you, okay? So here are the rules for adding ER and EST, and I want you to pause the video and I want you to study these, and then once you study and look at the examples, you can continue, okay? Now that you've read and studied and reviewed pretty much, because they're very similar, right? That you studied and reviewed the rules, now let's work on some exercises to check to see how you guys are doing. So number one, Alaska is not the blank state, and we have the adjective new. Now, if you identified that before the blank space, the one that you have to fill in, you saw the word, the article the, then just by looking at that, you should know what form you need, whether it's the comparative or the superlative. So when do we use the article the? If you said superlative, you are correct, which means that we're going to add est to new, and we're going to form the superlative form, which is now newest. Alaska is not the newest state. Great. Let's go to number two. Every state except Hawaii is blank than Alaska, and our adjective is old. Now, let's look at the sentence. Did you identify a word to help you decide whether you need the comparative or the superlative? If you said then you are definitely getting this because then is a keyword for the comparative form. When you are comparing two places, two things, or two people. In this case, we're comparing Hawaii with Alaska. So old turns into older. Every state except Hawaii is older than Alaska. Perfect. Number three, Alaska is the blank of all the states. Now let's look at the words in the sentence and let's see if you can identify keywords in it to help you decide whether you need the comparative or superlative. If you said the, you're correct. Also, if you identify the word all, although I didn't circle it, I did give you that as keywords that you could possibly use to decide what form you need. So the is used for the superlative. It's before the the adjective. So Alaska is the biggest of all states. And we also identified that this is a one-syllable word with one vowel ending in vowel consonant, which means that we have to double the consonant. This is why we doubled the G, okay? Don't forget about that rule. I gave you specifics and we used it for previous rules, so by now you should know that, okay? And if not, just copy it again, okay? So let's go to number 4. However, Wyoming has the blank population, and the adjective that we're working with is tiny. So do you identify a word that could possibly help you to decide which form you need? If you said the, you're correct, which means that you need the superlative form. And the superlative form is the one that we use when we're comparing 3 or more. And we know that the ending, the suffix, is est. So tiny turns into tiniest. Now, don't forget that there are rules that we have to follow. Notice how we changed the Y to I because tiny is an adjective that ends in consonant Y. So when an adjective ends with consonant Y, we change the Y to I and add es to most, in most cases, okay? All right. So now that we've done that, I hope that you feel a lot more comfortable with working with articles and working with comparatives and working with superlatives as well when you're comparing, okay? Now let's compare with more and most. So far we've talked about comparing with adjectives and we talked about the comparative and the superlative. And we've talked about mainly about adjectives that are one syllable or maybe 2 syllables, and those are in some cases, okay? But now we're going to work with more and most are used with what you guys would know as long adjectives. And long adjectives, here are some things that we have to follow when we're working with more and most. Okay, so first of all, I want you to notice that I added a 2 plus, and then I wrote the word most next to it, and then I wrote a 3 plus, and then I wrote all, which means that to most 2-syllable adjectives, again, 2-syllable adjectives are these words that when you separate the syllables, they have 2. You're going to add, you're going to add most, and we're going to work on some examples here. But if the adjective, if that long adjective, like intelligent, it's 3 syllables or more, then we're definitely going to use more and most. We're not going to use the suffixes er and est. We're going to use more and most. So intelligent has 4 syllables, so we know for sure that we are going to use more and most. So let's look at the rules that are very similar. Now, because we're working with comparing, we're still using the comparative and superlative form. So we use more for long adjectives, and this is showing the comparative form. And we use most when we're comparing 3 or more nouns, and this is the superlative form. Excuse me. So we use more when we're comparing 2 nouns. You're also going to see the word than in the sentence, and you're going to need it when you use when you're comparing 2 things. You're definitely going to need to use the word than in there. Now, something that you need to remember, and this is really, really important, is that you never add er and use more in the same sentence. Okay, that would be incorrect. So we already identified intelligent as being a 4-syllable word. So we know we definitely have to use more and most. And what does that mean, Mrs. Villamosa? Okay, let's look at the example. Tiger is more intelligenter than Ginger. Now, remember when I said to never add er and more in the same sentence? Look at this, more, and then it also has the er at the end. They're showing the exact same form. This would be incorrect, okay? Intelligent is a long adjective, which means that we should only add more if we want to show the comparative form. So the correct form would be Tiger is more intelligent than Ginger, okay? And this slide keeps wanting to change, okay? So Tiger is more intelligent than ginger. Perfect. We should not say more intelligenter. That would be incorrect. Okay? So let's go to most. Most, we're going to use to compare three or more nouns. You're going to see the word the in the sentence as well. When you're writing sentences, you're going to use the with the superlative form and use when something is the most of all. That sounds familiar because we already covered that. Okay. And here, never add the suffix, the ending est, and most in the same sentence. So it would be incorrect to say tiger is the most intelligentest cat. That is incorrect. Most and est are showing the same form, which is a superlative. Intelligent is a long adjective, which means that we should say tiger is the most intelligent cat. Let's look at the sentence here. Tiger is the most intelligent. So we add most and then intelligent, and that would be the correct way to say it or write it. Okay? Let's practice. What word should you add to the adjective in parentheses to complete each sentence correctly? And we're using more or most. Okay? So number one, cats and dogs are among the blank of all pets. Have you identified a word that can help you decide whether you need more, the comparative form, or most, the superlative? If you said the, you answered correctly. So in this case, because we have the word the before it, we know that we need the superlative form, so we should say the cats and dogs are among the most common of all pets. Perfect. Also, if you identify the word all, that's great as well. Let's go to number two. Cats are blank than dogs. Cats are blank than dogs, though. And we're using the adjective independent. Whoa, that's a long adjective, right? Independent. Okay, so cats, we look at the sentence, we identify the word than, and we know that we need to use more. So we say cats are more independent than dogs, though. Okay? Number three, one of the blank of all breeds of cat is a Siamese, and we have the adjective popular. So we identify what word? Oh, here it is. We identify the, which tells us that we're going to need the superlative form, which is most. So one of the most popular of all breeds of cat is the Siamese. Perfect. I hope that you guys are getting this, okay? So let's continue talking with comparing, but this time we're going to do good and bad, okay? When you're using good and bad, we say better and best to show the comparative and superlative. We also say worse and worst for bad. We don't say badder or baddest. We say worse or worst. And again, we're going to see the keywords then, and we're also going to see the keywords the. Okay. Also, when you are talking about, let's say, for example, the adjective little, you could say less. That's less than I was expecting, or least. But we're mainly going to focus on good, bad. Okay, perfect. Let's look at some examples. Now, when you are just talking about one thing, what you want to describe one thing, we just use the adjective, good or bad. So let's see. I found a good book at the library. That means that you're describing the book as being good. Okay, good. I read a bad story last night. Here you're just describing the one story that you read as being bad. That is the adjective. But what happens when you are comparing two things? Good then turns into better, and bad turns into worse. Let's read the example. It is better than the last book I read. Notice the keyword than here, right? And you're comparing the book that you're reading now with the last book that you read. You're saying that this one is better. Second sentence, it was worse than the story we read yesterday. You're saying that the book that you're reading now was worse, it's worse than the story you read yesterday. You're comparing the book from yesterday with today's book. Notice the word than here, see the keyword? And this is the comparative form for good and bad. better, worse. Now, when you're comparing three or more, we use the superlative form, and the superlative form for good and bad is best and worst. So, what is the best book you have ever read? So, out of all the books that you've read, which one is the best? See how we're comparing with three or more? And we use best. It may be the worst story I ever read. Out of all the stories, out of the 20 stories, to give you an exact amount, I'm still saying more than three. This one may have been the worst, okay? Because out of all of them, out of the five, out of the 20, out of the 100, out of the four, doesn't even have to be more, it just has to be more than three. This one is the worst. See how the spelling changes, okay? So let's practice. Number one, the rain today is much blank than yesterday's. Again, we're comparing the rain today with yesterday's. We're comparing two things. Another thing that we see is the keyword than. And don't forget that when you see the keyword than, it's an indication, it shows you that you need the comparative form. So what is the comparative form for bad? And please don't say better, okay? If you said worse, then you're correct. The rain today is much worse than yesterday. Good. Let's go to number two. Today would be the blank day of the week to visit the library. And then we have the adjective good. Today would be the day of the week to visit the library. Did you identify a word in there before the space? If you said the, you're right? Also, we are comparing today with the day of the week, and we know that the week has how many days? 7. So that's more than 3. So not only do we see the keyword the, but we know that days of the week has more than 4 days. So we know that we need to use the superlative. And what is the superlative form for good? Please don't say goodest. Best. Yes, today would be the best day of the week to visit the library. Perfect. Number 3, I think that animal stories are blank than science fiction. Let's read the sentence for a minute. You identify that you see the word than. That's one way to do it. That's usually the easiest way to identify it. But also you know that you are comparing. What are you comparing here? You are comparing animal stories with science fiction. So you know that you're comparing two things. And when you're comparing two things, you need the comparative form. Good. That means that what is the comparative form for good? Please don't say gooder. Better. Yes, I think that animal stories are better than science fiction. You guys are getting this. Again, you can pause it and double check your work and go back again if you need to hear again what we're doing here. Okay? Okay, so it's important that you have this, that you remember that for the adjectives good and bad, the comparative form and the superlative form, the spelling changes. So good turns into better when you're comparing two things, and you most likely use the word than, or will see the word than in the sentence. And the superlative form is best, and you're comparing three or more things, and you'll see the keyword the, as well as other keywords such as specific number higher than 3, or the word all, right? Okay. Also for bad, the comparative form is worse. See how the spelling changes? Big time, right? And then the superlative form, when you are comparing 3 or more, it's worst, what you need to use, okay? So if you want to pause it and copy this table down, it's going to be a great help for you so that you can study it and memorize it, okay? All right. So let's talk about, remember when I was giving you the presentation of adjectives, we talked about origin. What origin is it? Where is it from? And I said that I would give you more details into it later on in the discussion. Okay, well, these are called proper adjectives, okay? And when an adjective is formed from a proper noun, it's called a proper adjective. And like a proper noun, a proper adjective is capitalized. Let's look at some examples. Here's a Mexican silver bracelet. right? We're talking about the origin of the silver bracelet. Where is it from? Oh, it's a Mexican because it was made in Mexico. Okay, it's a Mexican silver bracelet. His Australian hat is made of leather. Notice Australian is the proper adjective here. Notice how they are capitalized. Did you go to the Hawaiian luau? Hawaiian, right? A specific luau, a Hawaiian luau, a luau from Hawaii. So we capitalize the H. And the spelling changes a little bit, right? From Hawaii, it changes to Hawaiian. From Australia, it changes to Australian. From Mexico, it changes to Mexican. Now let's look at my favorite ones. Have you tried a Puerto Rican mofongo, right? See how the word Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico, it changes, right? We're talking about the mofongo that comes from Puerto Rico. So these are all proper adjectives. And again, you have to capitalize. Notice how Puerto Rican, it's separated just like the word Puerto Rico. I've noticed a lot of people that are writing Puerto Rican and the word is together. No, it's two words. So Puerto is capitalized and Rican is capitalized as well. Okay. Now, there are some, the endings of proper adjectives that are mostly used, that are often used to change proper nouns into proper adjectives are going to be the suffixes an, n, ish, ish, and ese, ese. And notice that the other spelling changes when the ending is added. Like I said before, Puerto Rico changes to Puerto Rican, right? Remember the example. So let's look at the proper nouns in the first column. We have Ireland, Britain, Poland, Italy, Brazil, Canada, Puerto Rico, Japan, China, and Vietnam. And these are all the proper nouns. And then we have the endings. These are the endings for Ireland, and Britain, and Poland. We have Ireland changes to Irish, Britain turns to Irish, and Poland turns into Polish. Okay. And then AN, this is a category where we would fall as Puerto Rican. So we have Italy, Brazil, Italy turns into Italian, Brazil, Brazilian, Canada to Canadian, Puerto Rico to Puerto Rican, okay? And this could, you can use these proper adjectives when you, for example, you're talking about the Italian paintings or the Puerto Rican food or the Canadian money. And don't forget to capitalize them, okay? And the ending ESE for Japan, it turns to Japanese, China to Chinese, Vietnam to Vietnamese, and there are many, many others, okay? So when you work with your assignment, if you need to look them up, go ahead and do it, that's fine. Use the best resource that you guys now have, which is the internet, okay? Look it up, and this is very interesting, so if you wanna look at some of them and see how the proper adjectives are formed for different proper nouns in different places, you can look them up, okay? Okay. So you have to study this lesson. You have to be ready to discuss it tomorrow during our Zoom meeting at 1 p.m. Important, the assignment for this discussion will be available after this class discussion. So look for it in the assignments tab after it, because some of you are not listening to the class discussion and then you want to do the work, and it shouldn't be like that. So purposely I'm doing this. I am setting up, I'm scheduling the assignment to show up after the class discussion. Okay, so I love you. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. If you have any questions, write it down with your notes. And I miss you. Love you guys. Bye-bye.